The lawyer read my father-in-law's will, and his wife shrieked, "No. That money belongs to me, not some outsider." My husband grinned and said, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll fix this." I leaned back, smiling. "You already did, when you signed that loan agreement." Their faces went white as the bank representative walked in. Inheritance disputes have a way of exposing the deepest cracks in family relationships. I never imagined I'd be at the center of such turmoil until my father-in-law, Richard, passed away. Richard was a meticulous man, a retired architect from Chicago who had built a significant estate over his lifetime. His wife, Margaret, was accustomed to a life of comfort and control, especially over family matters. My husband, Daniel, their only child, followed in his father's professional footsteps. As for me, I was the outsider who married into this tight-knit family, always careful around their established dynamics. The day of the will reading, we gathered in Mr. Thompson's office, Richard's longtime attorney. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Margaret sat upright, her lips pursed, while Daniel held my hand firmly. Mr. Thompson adjusted his glasses and began. "Richard's last will and testament is clear. After various charitable donations, the remainder of his estate, including the family home and financial assets, is to be divided equally between his wife, Margaret, and his daughter-in-law, Sarah." The room fell silent. Margaret's face turned red as she shot up from her chair. "No, that money belongs to me, not some outsider," she shrieked. Daniel leaned toward his mother with a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll fix this." I felt a pang of betrayal but remained composed. Leaning back, I met Daniel's gaze and said calmly, "You already did, when you signed that loan agreement." Confusion flickered across his face, quickly replaced by realization and dread. At that moment, the door opened and Mr. Reynolds, a representative from the bank, walked in, holding a folder of documents. Margaret's eyes darted between Daniel and me. "What is she talking about, Daniel?" she demanded. Daniel swallowed hard, avoiding eye contact. I took out a loan against my future inheritance to cover some investments that didn't pan out," he admitted. Mr. Reynolds stepped forward. "Mr. Anderson used the family estate as collateral. With Mr. Anderson Sr.'s passing and the estate now divided, the bank requires immediate repayment." Margaret's hands trembled. "You mean to say that because of his recklessness, I'm left with nothing?" Daniel's shoulders slumped. "I'm sorry, Mom. I thought I could turn things around before Dad." She turned to me, her expression a mix of anger and desperation. "And you? What role do you play in this?" Taking a deep breath, I replied, "I had no knowledge of Daniel's financial dealings until recently. My only intention is to honor Richard's wishes and ensure the estate is handled appropriately." The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations and family meetings. Margaret, feeling betrayed by her son and overwhelmed by the situation, decided to contest the will, claiming undue influence and questioning my role in Richard's decisions. The courtroom became our new battleground. Margaret's attorneys painted me as a manipulative outsider who had coerced an ailing man into altering his will. Our side presented evidence of Richard's sound mind, his documented intentions, and testimonies from friends and colleagues affirming our close relationship. One particularly damning piece of evidence was a letter Richard had written to his friend and financial advisor, Mr. Caldwell, months before his passing. "Dear James, I've been reflecting on my legacy and the future of my family. While Margaret has been a steadfast partner, her understanding of our finances has been limited. Sarah, on the other hand, has shown acumen and genuine interest in preserving what we've built. I believe entrusting her with a significant portion of the estate will ensure its longevity and proper management. Warm regards, Richard." This letter, combined with other evidence, tilted the scales in our favor. The judge ruled to uphold the will, emphasizing Richard's clear intentions and sound state of mind. Margaret's challenge had not only failed but had also drained substantial resources. The court's decision left her with her designated share, but the legal fees and emotional toll were significant. Daniel and I faced our own reckoning. His financial missteps and the ensuing family drama strained our marriage to its limits. We sought counseling, attempting to rebuild trust and understanding. The journey was arduous, filled with moments of doubt and reflection. About 2 weeks after the court ruled in my favor, things started to feel like they might calm down. Daniel and I weren't exactly back to normal, but we were talking again, sharing meals, even trying to laugh once or twice. I was cautiously hopeful. Maybe this nightmare was behind us. But then I got a call. It was from a woman named Vanessa. I didn't recognize the name or the number, but her voice was shaking. "I'm sorry to call you like this," she said, "but I thought you deserved to know. I don't think your husband told you everything about the loan." My heart sank. "What do you mean?" "He didn't just borrow from the bank," she said. "He borrowed from my brother. A private lender. One of the not-so-nice ones." That's when the air left my lungs. She wasn't being dramatic. Her tone was dead serious. Apparently, before Daniel even talked to the bank, he'd taken a much bigger loan quietly and in cash from someone named Marco Bellamy, a guy with a reputation in the darker corners of Chicago's financial world. Interest rates that double if you're late. Deals that don't get written down. No courts, just consequences. I thanked Vanessa and hung up. My hands were shaking. I confronted Daniel that night. He didn't deny it. "I thought I could make it all back," he whispered, eyes on the floor. "I just needed time." "You risked everything," I said. "Our marriage. Your parents' legacy. Our safety." Then I asked the question that had been haunting me since Vanessa called. "Did you tell Marco about the inheritance?" "About me?" His silence was all the answer I needed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, Margaret screaming, the will reading, Daniel's forced smile, the judge's gavel, and now this. I thought it was over. It wasn't even close. The next morning, someone broke into the mailbox at the edge of our driveway. Nothing was stolen, but it was clearly tampered with. 2 days later, I noticed a black car parked down the street. It sat there for hours. No one got in. No one got out. Then it was gone. I called the police, but they said unless something actually happened, there wasn't much they could do. Margaret somehow found out about the loan from Marco too. I shouldn't have been surprised. Word travels fast in families like ours, especially when anger's involved. She showed up uninvited, stormed into our house, and slammed a stack of papers on the table. "Fix this," she snapped at Daniel. "Or I will. And trust me, you won't like how I do it." I picked up the papers. They were copies of emails. Screenshots of text messages. Old, too. Dates from almost a year ago. And every single one showed conversations between Daniel and Margaret, talking about the estate, how they were going to correct Richard's will before it got out of hand. The kind of correction that involved isolating him from his financial advisors and manipulating his access to legal paperwork. They tried to rewrite the will. They just didn't succeed in time. I looked at Margaret. "So you knew," I said. "You knew he was borrowing money and gambling with the estate. You helped him. You just didn't expect the will to go public." Her face twisted with rage. "I won't let you destroy this family," she hissed. "You already did," I said quietly. Daniel just stood there. For once, he didn't defend her. He didn't defend himself either. The next day, the black car was back. This time, it followed me for 6 blocks on my way to the grocery store before turning off. I drove straight to the police station. They still said they couldn't help. "You need proof," the officer told me. "A threat. A license plate. Something we can act on." I started documenting everything. Dates. Times. Plates. I installed cameras around the house and started locking up everything, even inside the house. I hid the original copy of the will, all court documents, even my passport. But it didn't stop there. One morning I came outside and found the tires on my car slashed. Another night, someone threw a rock through the front window. No note, no message. Just shattered glass and fear. That's when I realized this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about control. It was about silence. And I wasn't going to give them either. After the window incident, I started sleeping with the lights on. I wasn't scared, I was angry. I'd been dragged into their mess, threatened and lied to. And for what? To protect people who wouldn't even protect themselves? I was done playing defense. I went back to the stack of emails Margaret had dropped on the table. Something about them felt off. I couldn't explain it, but one message stood out. It was from a burner email, not attached to any name I recognized. The subject line just said, "Let's make her disappear." Dated 4 months before Richard passed away. I read it 10 times. The body was short, just, "She doesn't belong in the family. You know what to do." It didn't have a signature, but the reply from Margaret was real. She responded, "You're right. She's ruining everything. I'll talk to Daniel." That shook me. At first I thought it was just the usual bitterness she had toward me. But then I found another reply, dated a week later. "He's on board. I'll start the paperwork. He thinks it's for the trust. He doesn't need to know the whole plan." I had no idea what paperwork meant, but I had a feeling it wasn't good. I took it to my lawyer. He asked if I had any medical history that might have made me vulnerable, mental health issues, anything like that. "No," I said. "I'm clean." "Why?" He stared at the screen and said, "Because this looks like groundwork for a guardianship case. Or worse, a forced mental evaluation. If they could prove you were unstable, they might have tried to get control over your decisions, or discredit anything you said about the will." That hit me like a truck. They weren't just scheming behind Richard's back. They were planning to erase me. Quietly. Legally. And now I had proof. I knew I needed to move fast. I scanned the emails, backed them up, and sent copies to 3 trusted people. Then I confronted Daniel. For the first time, he looked like he wanted to disappear. "I didn't know about that," he said. "I swear to you, I never saw those emails." "Then why didn't you ever question the papers your mother had you sign?" I asked. "You just trusted her?" He didn't answer. That night, someone broke into my lawyer's office. Nothing was taken, except the flash drive that held copies of my documents. Nothing else was touched. Just that one item. But remember, I had backups. And I had already mailed a copy to the State Bar Association with a complaint attached. 2 days later, Margaret was served with an official notice. She was under investigation for conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted coercion. Daniel wasn't named yet, but he looked like a ghost walking through the house. I thought that would be the breaking point. That maybe, just maybe, this would finally stop. But that's when I got the envelope. It was slid under the front door. No stamp. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. It was me, sitting in my car at the grocery store, taken from behind. Below it was a note, handwritten in block letters, "Back off, or next time it's not just a photo." I took it straight to the police. They finally took me seriously. They opened an active investigation. They started surveillance on our home, interviewed neighbors, even put extra patrols through our area at night. And then came the final twist, at least the final one so far. One of the detectives came to see me. She looked exhausted but determined. "There's something you need to see," she said. It was surveillance footage. From a gas station near our house. Late at night, 2 weeks earlier. Margaret. Getting out of a car. Meeting a man. Marco Bellamy. Not just Daniel's mistake. Not just a side character. Margaret had gone to him. She wasn't just cleaning up Daniel's mess. She was funding it. Backing him. Or maybe she was the one in control the whole time. The detective leaned in. "We think Margaret hired Marco to put pressure on you. Not officially. Not traceable. But it fits." I sat back in my chair. And I finally saw it clearly. The will wasn't the beginning. It was the end of their plan. A plan that failed because Richard saw them for who they really were and handed the power to the one person he trusted. Me. And they were willing to destroy everything to take it back. The weeks after the photo threat were tense. The detective's discovery about Margaret meeting with Marco flipped everything on its head. Daniel, surprisingly, hadn't known. Or maybe he had and pretended he didn't. At this point, I stopped trying to separate lies from weakness. I stayed cold. Focused. I didn't let emotion cloud anything. My lawyer told me the best way to fight back was with evidence and pressure. So that's what I did. I gathered more emails, voicemail transcriptions, phone records, even Richard's old calendar notes. I built a full timeline proof of how they planned to alter the will, how they kept Richard away from his advisors, how they sent those messages about getting rid of me. And then I made my move. I filed a lawsuit. Not just against Margaret. Against both of them. Conspiracy, fraud, financial abuse, harassment, emotional distress. Every legal term my lawyer could dig up, we used it. I went after Daniel as a co-conspirator. I knew it would burn bridges, but those bridges were already ash. Margaret lost it. Called me every name you could imagine. Accused me of destroying her family. And that's when I finally snapped. No, Margaret. You destroyed it. You raised a son who lies and hides. You tried to erase a dying man's wishes. You sent people after me. You played games with people's lives, and I just stopped letting you win. She didn't say a word. Just walked out. The court case dragged on for months. The bank got involved too. Turns out, Daniel had lied on his loan paperwork. That made things criminal. Marco was brought in for questioning. He lawyered up fast. And then came the biggest surprise of all. Daniel took a plea deal. In exchange for reduced charges and no jail time, he testified against his own mother. He admitted she pressured him. That she'd promised to take care of everything if he just signed whatever she gave him. He admitted he knew about Marco, he just didn't think she'd go as far as threats and break-ins. But the moment that ended it for me was when the judge asked Daniel, "Would you have come clean if your wife hadn't fought back?" Daniel looked down and said, "No. I would have let it happen." I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just nodded. Because that was all I needed to hear. The court ruled in my favor. The remaining estate, what was left after the damages and repayments, was put in my sole name. The judge ordered restitution payments from Margaret and Daniel for the emotional and legal damage they caused. Margaret was found guilty of conspiracy and elder financial abuse. She lost her standing in the community, most of her money, and had to sell her luxury condo to pay fines. Marco disappeared after being questioned. Probably ran. I didn't care. Daniel moved out. I didn't fight him. I signed the divorce papers 2 days after the court decision. No hesitation. I told him, this isn't revenge. This is freedom. He didn't argue. For months after, people whispered. Some took sides. But most stayed quiet. I stayed in the house Richard left me. I fixed the windows, changed the locks, and planted fresh flowers in the yard. Not because I cared about appearances, but because I wanted to make the place mine again. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if I made mistakes too. Maybe I was too trusting. Maybe I should have seen the signs earlier. Maybe marrying into that family was the first red flag I ignored. But then I remember I didn't lie. I didn't scheme. I didn't throw the first stone. I just made sure they didn't throw the last. And that's the difference between surviving and being used. I didn't just survive. I ended it.